In today's captivating story, a millionaire businessman falls for a woman from a humble background, only to be stunned by a shocking revelation about her father. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and if you'd like to support us in creating more amazing content, please consider making a donation using the link in the pinned comment. Now let's dive into this intriguing tale. Maximilian Thornton III, known to his friends as Max, was the epitome of success in New York City's bustling financial district. At 35, he had already amassed a fortune that most could only dream of, with his hedge fund consistently outperforming the market. His penthouse apartment overlooked Central Park, and his garage housed a collection of luxury cars that would make any automobile enthusiast weak at the knees. Yet, for all his material wealth, Max felt a gnawing emptiness in his life. His relationships were shallow, mostly limited to business partnerships and fleeting romances with socialites who were more interested in his bank account than his personality. As he sat in his favorite coffee shop one crisp autumn morning, idly scrolling through his phone, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. It was at that moment that fate intervened. A young woman, struggling with an armful of textbooks and a precariously balanced cup of coffee, stumbled and bumped into his table. Time seemed to slow as Max watched her coffee cup tumble towards his pristine white shirt. With reflexes honed from years of high-stakes negotiations, he managed to catch the cup before it spilled, saving both his shirt and the woman's dignity. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," the woman exclaimed, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment. "I'm such a klutz sometimes." Max looked up, ready to dismiss the incident with his usual cool demeanor, but the words caught in his throat. The woman before him was breathtakingly beautiful, not in the polished, artificial way he was accustomed to, but in a natural, unassuming manner that took him completely by surprise. "No harm done," he managed to say, offering her a genuine smile. "I'm Max, and you are?" "Sophia," she replied, tucking a stray strand of chestnut hair behind her ear. "Sophia Reyes. Thank you for saving my coffee, and probably my entire morning." As they chatted, Max learned that Sophia was a graduate student studying social work, working part-time as a waitress to make ends meet. Her passion for helping others and her down-to-earth nature captivated him. For the first time in years, Max found himself truly engaged in a conversation, hanging on every word. When Sophia glanced at her watch and realized she was late for class, Max impulsively asked for her number. To his surprise and delight, she agreed, scribbling it on a napkin before rushing out the door. As he watched her leave, Max felt a strange mix of excitement and trepidation. This woman was unlike anyone he had ever met in his social circles. She was genuine, kind, and seemingly unimpressed by the trappings of wealth. He found himself wondering what it would be like to pursue a relationship with someone so different from himself. Little did Max know that this chance encounter would set in motion a series of events that would challenge everything he thought he knew about love, family, and the true meaning of wealth. As he pocketed the napkin with Sophia's number, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to change dramatically. Over the next few weeks, Max found himself increasingly drawn to Sophia. Their coffee shop encounter had sparked something in him, a curiosity, a hunger for authenticity that he hadn't realized he'd been missing. He began orchestrating accidental meetings, conveniently showing up at her workplace or the university campus where she studied. At first, Sophia was wary of Max's attention. She'd heard stories of wealthy men pursuing flings with working-class women, and she had no interest in being anyone's charity case or temporary distraction. But Max's persistence and genuine interest in her life slowly began to win her over. Their first official date was a stark departure from Max's usual lavish outings. Instead of a five-star restaurant, Sophia suggested a small, family-owned Mexican restaurant in her neighborhood. Max, accustomed to power lunches and black-tie galas, found himself enchanted by the lively atmosphere and authentic flavors. "This is incredible," he exclaimed, savoring a bite of chile relleno. "I can't believe I've never had food like this before." Sophia laughed, her eyes twinkling. "There's a whole world out there beyond Manhattan's elite eateries, Max. You just have to be willing to explore it." As they walked through the vibrant streets of Sophia's neighborhood after dinner, Max felt a sense of liberation. Here, nobody knew him as the billionaire hedge fund manager. He was just a man, enjoying the company of a fascinating woman. The simplicity of it all was intoxicating. Their relationship blossomed over shared meals, long walks in the park, and passionate discussions about their vastly different worlds. Max found himself captivated by Sophia's dedication to her studies and her dream of opening a community center for at-risk youth. In turn, Sophia was surprised to discover the depth behind Max's polished exterior, his sharp intellect, his dry wit, and the loneliness that came with his position. However, as they grew closer, Max struggled with how to integrate Sophia into his high society life. He knew his peers would judge her background, and he feared their reaction might scare her away. So, he kept their relationship separate from his professional world, creating a bubble of happiness that existed outside the pressures of his usual environment. Sophia, too, had her reservations. While she was falling for Max, she couldn't help but worry about the vast differences in their lifestyles. "I'm not sure I belong in your world, Max," she confessed one evening as they sat on a park bench, watching the sunset. Max took her hand, his heart racing. "Maybe I don't want to belong in that world anymore," he replied softly. "Being with you, it's shown me what really matters in life." As weeks turned into months, Max found himself reevaluating everything he had once held dear. The thrill of closing multi-million-dollar deals paled in comparison to the joy of making Sophia laugh. His luxurious penthouse felt cold and empty compared to the warmth of her modest apartment. Yet, despite the growing intensity of their feelings, both Max and Sophia sensed that they were approaching a crossroads. The reality of their different backgrounds loomed large, an unspoken challenge to their budding romance. Everything came to a head when Max decided it was time for Sophia to meet his parents. He knew it was a risk. His family was notoriously judgmental, but he was determined to show them the woman who had captured his heart. What Max didn't realize was that this decision would set in motion a chain of events that would shake the very foundations of his world. As he made plans for the meeting, he had no idea that the biggest shock was yet to come, one that would force him to confront truths about himself, his family, and the nature of true love. As the day of the dinner with Max's parents approached, both Max and Sophia felt the weight of anticipation. Max had chosen an upscale restaurant, hoping to create a comfortable environment for his parents while also impressing Sophia. However, as they stepped out of his luxury car at the restaurant entrance, he could feel Sophia's discomfort. "Are you sure about this?" Sophia whispered, tugging at the hem of her borrowed designer dress. It was beautiful, but she felt like an imposter wearing it. Max squeezed her hand reassuringly. "They'll love you," he said, trying to convince himself as much as her. The moment they entered the private dining room, Max realized his mistake. His parents, Theodore and Victoria Thornton, exuded an aura of old money and privilege that seemed to fill the space. Their eyes widened almost imperceptibly as they took in Sophia, and Max felt a flare of defensiveness. "Mother, father," he said, his voice steady. "This is Sophia Reyes, the woman I've been telling you about." Victoria's smile was polite but cold. "Charmed, I'm sure," she said, extending a hand adorned with a massive diamond ring. Theodore merely nodded, his eyes already drifting back to the wine list. As the evening progressed, the gulf between their worlds became increasingly apparent. Victoria peppered Sophia with questions about her family background and education, each inquiry feeling more like an interrogation. Theodore, when he deigned to join the conversation, spoke only of business deals and social events that excluded Sophia entirely. Sophia, to her credit, held her own admirably. She answered questions with grace and even managed to engage Theodore in a discussion about the social impact of corporate policies. Max felt a surge of pride and affection watching her navigate this challenging situation. However, but for who he is as a person, something I'm not sure you've taken the time to appreciate. A shocked silence fell over the table. Max felt a mix of horror and admiration at Sophia's boldness. Theodore's eyebrows shot up, a flicker of respect crossing his face before it was quickly suppressed. Victoria's facade cracked for a moment, revealing a flash of anger before she composed herself. "Well," she said icily, "I think we've had quite enough excitement for one evening." As they left the restaurant, Max felt a storm of emotions. He was angry at his parents, proud of Sophia, and increasingly aware of the challenges they faced. "I'm so sorry," he said as they walked to the car. "They had no right to treat you that way." Sophia's eyes were bright with unshed tears, but her voice was steady. "It's not your fault, Max. But is this what our life together would always be like? Constantly fighting for acceptance?" Max didn't have an answer. As they drove back to Sophia's apartment in silence, he realized that their relationship had reached a critical juncture. He loved Sophia more than he had ever loved anyone, but could love really conquer the vast differences in their backgrounds? Little did Max know that the dinner with his parents was just the beginning of the challenges they would face. As he dropped Sophia off, promising to call her the next day, he had no idea that the biggest test of their relationship was yet to come, a revelation that would shake his world to its very core and force him to question everything he thought he knew about his life and his family. The day after the disastrous dinner with his parents, Max found himself unable to concentrate at work. His mind kept replaying the events of the previous night, torn between anger at his parents, behavior, and worry about Sophia's reaction. As he stared blankly at his computer screen, his assistant knocked on the door. "Mr. Thornton, there's a Miss Reyes here to see you. She says it's urgent." Max's heart leapt. He hadn't expected Sophia to come to his office, especially after last night. "Send her in, please," he said, straightening his tie. Sophia entered, looking uncharacteristically nervous. Her eyes were red-rimmed, as if she'd been crying. "Max," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "we need to talk." Fearing the worst, Max guided her to a seat. "Sophia, about last night, I'm so sorry. My parents were completely out of line." She shook her head. "It's not about that. Well, not entirely." She took a deep breath. "After I got home last night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about your father." Max frowned, confused. "My father? Did he say something to you that I didn't hear?" "No, it's not that," Sophia said, twisting her hands in her lap. "It's... Max, I think I've seen your father before. Long before I met you." The world seemed to tilt on its axis as Max processed her words. "What do you mean? Where?" Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "In an old photograph. My mother kept it hidden in a box of mementos. I found it years ago, but I never understood why she had a picture of a man I didn't know." She paused, her voice breaking. "Max, I think your father might be my father too." The silence that followed was deafening. Max felt as if the floor had dropped out from beneath him. That's impossible," he stammered. "There must be some mistake." But even as he said it, pieces began falling into place. His father's odd reaction to Sophia at dinner, the way he had avoided looking directly at her. And hadn't there always been whispers about Theodore Thornton's infidelities? "I didn't want to believe it either," Sophia said, her voice steadier now. "But after seeing him in person, I couldn't shake the feeling. I called my mom this morning, and she confirmed it. She had an affair with Theodore Thornton 25 years ago. She never told him about me." Max's mind reeled. If this was true, it meant that Sophia was his half-sister, the woman he had fallen in love with, the person who had made him question everything about his life. A new emotion took its place. Rage. Rage at his father for his infidelity, at the unfairness of the situation, at the cruel twist of fate that had brought Sophia into his life only to snatch away any chance of a future together. "What do we do now?" Sophia asked, her voice small and frightened. Max stood up, pacing the room. His mind was racing, trying to find a way out of this nightmare. But there was no escape. They had to face the truth, no matter how painful. "And we need to talk to my father. he said finally. He deserves to know he has another child. And we need to figure out where we go from here. As they left Max's office together, both of them shell-shocked and reeling, neither could have imagined the chain of events this revelation would set in motion. The foundations of the Thornton family were about to be shaken to their core, and the ripple effects would reach far beyond their immediate circle, changing lives in ways they could never have anticipated. The drive to the Thornton estate felt interminable. Max gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white, while Sophia sat silently beside him, lost in thought. The manicured lawns and wrought iron gates that had once symbolized privilege and security now felt like the entrance to a battlefield. As they approached the main house, Max saw his father on the terrace, drink in hand, surveying his domain. The sight of him, so oblivious to the impending storm, made Max's blood boil. "Father," Max called out as they exited the car, his voice tight with controlled anger. "We need to talk. Now." Theodore's eyebrows rose at the sight of Sophia. "I wasn't aware we were having guests," he said coolly. "Perhaps we should take this inside." Once in Theodore's study, Max wasted no time. "Father, do you recognize this woman?" he demanded, gesturing to Sophia. Theodore's eyes narrowed. "Of course. She's the young lady you brought to dinner last night. Really, Max, if this is about our reaction." "Her name is Sophia Reyes," Max interrupted. "Does that name mean anything to you?" A flicker of something, recognition, fear, passed across Theodore's face, quickly replaced by his usual impassive expression. "I'm afraid I don't understand the relevance of—" "Stop lying!" Max shouted, slamming his hand on the desk. "We know, Father. We know about your affair with Elena Reyes 25 years ago." The color drained from Theodore's face. He sank into his chair, suddenly looking every one of his 65 years. How did you find out?" he whispered. Sophia stepped forward, her voice trembling but determined. "My mother told me this morning, after I recognized you from an old photograph." Theodore's eyes locked onto Sophia's face, really seeing her for the first time. "My God," he breathed. "You look just like her." The confirmation hung heavy in the air. Max felt a complex mix of emotions: vindication, disgust, and an overwhelming sadness for the years of deception. "Did you know?" Sophia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Did you know about me?" Theodore shook his head, his composure crumbling. "No, Elena never told me. We ended things before. I had no idea." As the full weight of the situation settled over them, Victoria Thornton's voice rang out from the doorway. "What's going on here? Why are you all looking so serious?" The next few minutes were a blur of accusations, denials, and finally, painful admissions. Victoria's face cycled through shock, anger, and a deep, devastating hurt as the truth came to light. "How could you?" she hissed at Theodore, tears streaming down her face. "All these years I suspected, but I never thought." "I'm so sorry," Theodore said, reaching for her hand, but she jerked away as if burned. "Don't touch me," she snapped. Then, rounding on Sophia, her voice dripping with venom, "And you? I suppose you think this entitles you to a share of the Thornton fortune?" "Mother!" Max exclaimed, appalled. But Sophia stood her ground. "Mrs. Thornton, I didn't come here for money. I came for the truth, and maybe for a chance to know the family I never had." The rawness in Sophia's voice seemed to penetrate Victoria's anger. For a moment, the older woman's face softened, showing a glimpse of the pain and insecurity that lay beneath her harsh exterior. As the initial storm of emotions began to subside, they were left with the daunting question of what came next. How could they move forward from this? What did it mean for their family, for the Thornton legacy? Max looked at Sophia, the woman he had fallen in love with, now revealed to be his half-sister. The pain of losing her as a romantic partner was acute, But as he watched her stand tall in the face of this life-altering revelation, he felt a new kind of love growing, the protective, fierce love of a brother for his sister. "We'll figure this out," he said, taking her hand. "Together." As they stood there, a fractured family facing an uncertain future, none of them could have predicted the challenges and surprises that lay ahead. The Thornton family would never be the same, but perhaps, just perhaps, it could become something stronger, more honest, and more compassionate than it had ever been before. In the days following the explosive revelation, the Thornton household descended into chaos. Victoria retreated to her private wing of the mansion, refusing to speak to anyone. Theodore buried himself in work, spending long hours at the office to avoid facing the mess he'd created at home. Max found himself caught in the middle, trying to mediate between his parents while also grappling with his own conflicted feelings about Sophia. Sophia, overwhelmed by the sudden upheaval in her life, threw herself into her studies and work at the community center. She struggled with her new identity, unsure of where she fit in this fractured family dynamic. It was during this tumultuous time that an unexpected ally emerged: Evelyn Thornton, Max's paternal grandmother. At 85, Evelyn was a force to be reckoned with, sharp-minded, outspoken, and fiercely protective of her family. When she caught wind of the scandal, she wasted no time in summoning everyone to her estate for a family meeting. "Enough of this nonsense," Evelyn declared, her steely gaze sweeping across the room. "We are Thorntons. We face our problems head-on, not hide from them like cowards." Her words seemed to jolt everyone out of their individual spirals of self-pity and recrimination. Even Victoria, who had reluctantly attended, sat up a little straighter. "Now," Evelyn continued, turning to Sophia, "let me get a good look at you, child." Sophia stepped forward nervously, but Evelyn's face softened as she studied her. "It's time to step up and be the father this young woman deserves." Theodore nodded, chastened but also relieved to have a path forward. "You're right, Mother. Sophia, I know I can never make up for the years I missed, but if you're willing, I'd like the chance to get to know you." Sophia, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, nodded. "I'd like that too." Victoria, watching this exchange, felt her anger and hurt begin to soften. She thought of her own father, who had passed away when she was young, and how she would have given anything for more time with him. Slowly, she stood and approached Sophia. I owe you an apology," she said, her voice wavering. "My behavior has been inexcusable. This situation isn't your fault, and you don't deserve my hostility. I can't promise it will be easy, but I'm willing to try if you are." Sophia, moved by this unexpected olive branch, reached out and squeezed Victoria's hand. "Thank you. That means a lot to me." As the tension in the room dissipated, Max felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He looked at his grandmother with newfound appreciation. "How did you do that?" he whispered. Evelyn winked at him. "Years of practice, my boy. Family is messy, but it's all we've got. Sometimes it just takes a firm hand to remind everyone of that." As the family began to tentatively discuss plans for moving forward, Max pulled Sophia aside. "And I know this isn't how either of us imagined things would turn out," he said softly. "But I want you to know that I'm here for you, always, as your brother, your friend, whatever you need." Sophia smiled, feeling for the first time since the revelation a sense of belonging. "Thank you, Max. I think this might be the beginning of something good." Little did they know that Evelyn's intervention was just the first step in a journey that would test their newfound family bonds. As they left the estate that day, each lost in their own thoughts about the future, none of them could have predicted the challenges and unexpected joys that lay ahead. The Thornton family was about to embark on a transformative journey, one that would not only redefine their relationships with each other, but also their place in the world. And at the center of it all was Sophia, whose presence would catalyze changes none of them could have imagined. As weeks turned into months, the Thornton family began the delicate process of integrating Sophia into their lives. It was a journey filled with awkward moments, tentative steps forward, and occasional setbacks, but slowly, a new family dynamic began to emerge. Max, determined to forge a strong sibling bond with Sophia, threw himself into learning about her world. He began volunteering at the community center where she worked, his business acumen proving unexpectedly useful in securing funding and resources. Watching Max interact with the underprivileged kids at the center, Sophia saw a side of him she'd never known existed: compassionate, patient, and genuinely invested in making a difference. Theodore, true to his word, made efforts to connect with his newfound daughter. Their relationship was tentative at first, marked by stilted conversations and long silences. But as they spent more time together, they discovered shared interests: a love of classic literature, a dry sense of humor, and a passion for social justice that Theodore had long suppressed in his pursuit of wealth and status. Victoria's journey was perhaps the most surprising. Initially cold and distant, she found herself drawn to Sophia's warmth and genuine nature. One afternoon, as they worked together in Victoria's prized rose garden, Sophia's easy laughter and unpretentious joy in the simple act of gardening sparked something in Victoria. She began to question the rigid social norms she'd clung to for so long, wondering if perhaps there was more to life than maintaining appearances. Evelyn, ever the family anchor, watched these developments with quiet satisfaction. She organized family dinners, outings, and even a weekend retreat, creating opportunities for bonding and healing. Her wisdom and unconditional love provided a safe space for everyone to navigate their changing relationships. As the family grew closer, they also began to face the outside world together. The first real test came at the annual Thornton Charity Gala, a high-profile event attended by New York's elite. The whispers and stares were palpable as Sophia entered on Theodore's arm, with Max, Victoria, and Evelyn flanking them protectively. "Is that his mistress?" one socialite whispered none too quietly. "I heard she's after the family fortune," another muttered. But before anyone could intervene, Sophia stepped forward, her head held high. "Good evening, everyone," she said, her voice clear and confident. "I'm Sophia Reyes Thornton, and I'm honored to be here supporting my family's charitable foundation." A hush fell over the room. Theodore, swelling with pride, added, "My daughter, Sophia, has opened our eyes to the real impact we can have in our community. Tonight, we're announcing a new initiative to support education and job training in underserved neighborhoods." The announcement, spearheaded by Sophia and Max's work at the community center, marked a turning point for the Thornton family. No longer content with surface-level philanthropy, they were leveraging their wealth and influence to create meaningful change. As the night wore on, Victoria found herself watching Sophia with a mixture of admiration and regret. This young woman, whom she had initially seen as a threat, was breathing new life into their family and their legacy. In that moment, Victoria made a decision. Clinking her glass to call for attention, Victoria addressed the crowd. "I'd like to say something," she began, her voice wavering slightly. "For years, I've prided myself on upholding the Thornton family name, but I've come to realize that true family, true legacy, isn't about maintaining appearances. It's about love, acceptance, and growth." She turned to Sophia, tears in her eyes. "Sophia, you've taught us all so much. You are a Thornton in every way that matters, and I'm proud to call you my daughter." The room erupted in applause, but for the Thornton family, the rest of the world faded away. They stood together, a united front, realizing that their family hadn't been broken by Sophia's arrival. It had been made whole. As they left the gala that night, Max couldn't help but marvel at how much had changed. The family he'd once seen as cold and disconnected was now vibrant and loving. And at the center of it all was Sophia, the sister he never knew he needed, who had catalyzed a transformation none of them could have imagined. Little did they know, This night was just the beginning. The Thornton family's journey of redefinition was far from over, and the biggest challenges and rewards were yet to come. As the Thornton family navigated their new dynamics, an unexpected challenge emerged from the business world. Thornton Enterprises, the family's multi-billion-dollar corporation, was facing a crisis. A series of investigative reports had uncovered unethical practices in some of the company's overseas operations, including labor exploitation and environmental violations. The news hit like a bombshell, threatening not only the company's reputation, but also the family's newfound unity. Theodore, as CEO, found himself at the center of a media firestorm. Shareholders were demanding answers, and there were calls for his resignation. Max, as the heir apparent to the company, was thrust into the spotlight. He had always seen himself taking over the family business one day, but now he found himself questioning everything. The practices that had been exposed went against everything he had come to believe in since meeting Sophia. It was during a tense family meeting that Sophia spoke up. "I know I'm new to all of this," she began hesitantly, "but I think I might have an idea." All eyes turned to her, a mix of curiosity and skepticism evident on their faces. "What if," Sophia continued, gaining confidence, "we use this as an opportunity for real change, not just damage control, but a complete overhaul of how Thornton Enterprises does business?" She laid out a bold plan, a top-to-bottom audit of all company practices, followed by a comprehensive reform. It would involve partnering with environmental groups and labor rights organizations to ensure ethical practices across all operations. More than that, she proposed redirecting a significant portion of the company's profits into community development projects in areas where they operated. "It's risky," Max said, his mind racing with the potential implications. "We'd be the first major corporation to attempt something like this. It could cost us a lot in the short term." "But think of the long-term benefits," Sophia argued. "Not just for our reputation, but for the actual good we could do in the world." Theodore listened intently, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke. "It's radical. It goes against everything I've built this company on." He paused, looking at each family member in turn. "But maybe that's exactly what we need." The decision was made. Over the next few months, the Thornton family threw themselves into the monumental task of reforming Thornton Enterprises. Max and Sophia worked side by side, their complementary skills creating a formidable team. Max's business acumen and insider knowledge paired perfectly with Sophia's fresh perspective and passion for social justice. Victoria, to everyone's surprise, became one of the project's most ardent supporters. She leveraged her social connections to gain support for the reforms, turning potential critics into allies. The process was far from smooth. They faced resistance from within the company, skepticism from the media, and a temporary but significant drop in stock prices. There were moments of doubt, heated arguments, and sleepless nights. But as the reforms began to take shape, something remarkable happened. Employees, energized by the new direction, became more productive and innovative. Consumers, impressed by the company's genuine commitment to change, showed increased loyalty. Gradually, other corporations began to follow suit, realizing that ethical business practices could indeed be profitable. 1 year after the crisis began, Thornton Enterprises emerged as a leader in corporate social responsibility. The company's stock had not only recovered but was reaching new heights. More importantly, they were making a real, measurable difference in communities around the world. At the press conference announcing the successful completion of their reform initiative, Theodore stood at the podium, flanked by his family. "A year ago, we faced a choice," he began. "We could have chosen the easy path of denial and superficial changes. Instead, guided by the wisdom and courage of my children, we chose to fundamentally reimagine what a corporation can be in today's world." As applause filled the room, Theodore gestured for Max and Sophia to join him at the podium. "Today, I'm proud to announce that going forward, Thornton Enterprises will be led by co-CEOs, my son, Max Thornton, and my daughter, Sophia Reyes Thornton. The announcement sent shockwaves through the business world. A family-owned corporation of this size had never been led by siblings before, let alone a pair with such different backgrounds. As they stood there under the glare of camera flashes, Max squeezed Sophia's hand. They exchanged a look of determination and hope. They knew the road ahead would be challenging, but together, they were ready to lead Thornton Enterprises and perhaps the entire corporate world into a new era. Little did they know that their greatest test, both as business leaders and as a family, was still to come. As Max and Sophia settled into their roles as co-CEOs of Thornton Enterprises, they thought they had weathered the worst of the storms. However, fate had one more surprise in store for the Thornton family. It began with an innocuous email to the company's public relations department. A woman named Isabella Martinez claimed to have information about the Thornton family history that could change everything. Initially dismissed as another attention seeker, the email found its way to Sophia's desk during a routine review. Something about Isabella's message resonated with Sophia. Against the advice of their PR team, she decided to meet with Isabella privately. What she discovered would shake the foundations of the Thornton legacy once again. Isabella, it turned out, was the granddaughter of Miguel Martinez, Theodore Thornton Sr., as former business partner from the early days of Thornton Enterprises. According to Isabella, her grandfather and Theodore Sr. had built the company together, but Miguel's name had been erased from all official records after a falling out. More shockingly, Isabella produced a series of letters and documents suggesting that many of the key innovations that had launched Thornton Enterprises to success had actually been Miguel's ideas. If true, it meant that the Thornton family's entire fortune was built on a lie. Sophia, reeling from this revelation, confided in Max. Together, they decided to launch a discreet investigation before bringing the matter to the rest of the family. As they delved deeper into the company's archives and their grandfather's personal papers, a complex story began to emerge. Theodore Thornton Sr. and Miguel Martinez had indeed been partners, two brilliant young entrepreneurs with big dreams. But as the company grew, so did the tensions between them. Theodore Sr., with his Ivy League education and social connections, became the face of the company, while Miguel, an immigrant with a knack for innovation, worked behind the scenes. The final straw came when Theodore Sr. patented several of Miguel's inventions under his own name. When confronted, he offered Miguel a sizable payout to walk away quietly. Faced with the prospect of a lengthy legal battle he couldn't afford, Miguel took the money and disappeared, his contributions erased from the company's official history. As Max and Sophia pieced together this painful history, they faced an agonizing dilemma. Revealing the truth could potentially destroy everything they had worked to build. The legal ramifications alone could bankrupt the company. Moreover, it would tarnish their family's name irreparably. On the other hand, staying silent meant perpetuating a decades-old injustice. It went against everything they stood for, especially after their recent commitment to ethical business practices. The siblings spent sleepless nights debating their options. Finally, they decided to present their findings to the entire family, including Evelyn, who had been uncharacteristically quiet throughout the recent changes. The family meeting that followed was one of the most difficult they had ever faced. Theodore was stunned into silence, while Victoria wept quietly. But it was Evelyn's reaction that surprised them all. With tears in her eyes, the family matriarch confessed that she had known about Miguel all along. "Your grandfather swore me to secrecy," she said, her voice heavy with years of guilt. "He always meant to make it right, but pride and fear held him back. In the end, he couldn't face what he'd done." The room fell silent as the weight of this legacy settled over them. It was Sophia who finally broke the silence. "We have a choice to make," she said firmly. "We can hide this and hope it never comes to light, or we can own up to our family's mistakes and try to make amends." Max nodded in agreement. "We've built this company on the idea of transparency and ethical behavior. If we cover this up, everything we've done becomes meaningless." The decision they reached would set in motion a series of events that would not only redefine Thornton Enterprises, but also challenge the very notion of corporate responsibility in America. As they prepared to face the public with their family's dark secret, none of them could have predicted the far-reaching consequences of their choice. The Thornton family stood at a crossroads, their past, present, and future hanging in the balance. The final chapter of their story was about to unfold, promising to be the most challenging and potentially rewarding yet. The day of the press conference arrived, and the tension was palpable. The Thornton family stood united behind Max and Sophia as they prepared to address the world. News of a major announcement had sparked intense speculation, and the room was packed with journalists, industry leaders, and curious onlookers. Max stepped up to the podium first, his face a mask of determination. "Today, we're here to correct a historic injustice and to chart a new course for Thornton Enterprises," he began. Over the next hour, he and Sophia took turns detailing the true history of the company's founding, acknowledging Miguel Martinez's crucial role in the subsequent cover-up. The reaction was immediate and intense. Social media exploded with commentary, the company's stock price plummeted, and calls for boycotts began almost instantly. For days, the Thorntons found themselves at the center of a media firestorm. But amidst the chaos, something unexpected began to happen. Stories of corporate whistleblowers and ethical business pioneers started to surface. With Isabella Martinez invited to co-chair the board, they also launched a company-wide initiative to review all patents and give credit where it was due, even if it meant losing exclusive rights to some of their most profitable innovations. This move, while initially seen as financial suicide by many, ended up sparking a wave of collaboration and innovation within the company. Theodore, inspired by his children's courage, made a public apology and stepped down from his remaining roles in the company, dedicating himself full-time to the foundation's work. Victoria, finding a new purpose, became a vocal advocate for corporate transparency, using her social influence to push for legislative changes. The road to redemption was long and challenging. The company faced lawsuits, lost contracts, and had to rebuild trust with shareholders and customers alike. But as months turned into years, Thornton Enterprises emerged as a beacon of corporate responsibility. Their radical transparency and commitment to ethical practices set a new standard in the business world. 5 years after the revelation, at the grand opening of the Miguel Martinez Innovation Center, a state-of-the-art facility dedicated to nurturing diverse entrepreneurial talent, the Thornton family gathered once again. As they watched Sophia cut the ribbon alongside Isabella Martinez, there was a sense of pride and accomplishment that went beyond financial success. Evelyn, now in her 90s but still sharp as ever, summed it up best in her speech. "True legacy isn't measured in dollars or buildings. It's measured in the lives we touch and the positive change we create in the world." Today, I can say with certainty that the Thornton legacy is one I'm proud to pass on to future generations. As the applause died down, Max found himself reflecting on the incredible journey they had been through. From that chance encounter with Sophia in a coffee shop to the complete transformation of their family and business, it had been a roller coaster of emotions and challenges. But standing there, surrounded by his family, both old and new, he knew that every struggle had been worth it. Sophia caught his eye and smiled, a look of understanding passing between them. They had started this journey as strangers, became lovers, then siblings, and now partners in every sense of the word. Their unconventional path had led them to redefine not just their family, but the very notion of what a family business could be. As the celebration continued around them, the Thornton family stood together, no longer burdened by secrets and lies, but united in their commitment to using their privilege and power for the greater good. They had transformed a scandal into a force for positive change, turning their family's darkest chapter into the beginning of a brighter, more inclusive future. The story of the Thorntons was far from over, but whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, as a family, as business leaders, and as champions of a new era of corporate responsibility. Their journey had become a testament to the power of truth, redemption, and the enduring strength of family bonds, reshaped and strengthened by adversity.